In the year 2000, I crossed Canada on a bicycle promoting Rotary's Polio Plus program. Bought a book in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, and found a poem that I thought was really, really good. It talks about a train driver, a train engineer, and who drives a high-speed continental passenger train known as the Limited. It is purported to be a true story. Now, I'm not superstitious, or at least I don't call it that. But when someone spins a creepy yarn, I sure don't deny it flat. For a man who has spent his lifetime with a throttle in his hand is just bound to have had a few adventures that he just cannot understand. Yes, I sometimes think that our knowledge here is but a sorry show, that really we're just on the borderland of what there really is to know. Yes, I used to think that a man could know all things that could be known, but there was certainly no reason to acknowledge any power above our own. That irregardless of how strange the circumstance, there always is a cause, and it is in complete obedience to at least some of nature's laws. But I couldn't shake conviction off, no matter how hard I tried, and so I changed my way of thinking after the night that Willie died. You see, Willie was my little son. He was my greatest earthly joy. And we just kind of seemed, dote upon the boy. Why, when I was out on duty, she would hover around the lad and treasure up his sayings and then repeat them to his dad. And every night at lighting time, I knew that without fail, his baby lips were home praying for the man out on the rails. Well, for 5 short years, we knew what a treasure really is. We became very much accustomed to those sweet little ways of his. And then one day, swinging through the gate, I saw with blanching face my wife just as pale as ashes, a doctor in the place. Well, I tried to go on in steady, but my knees were knocking hard, and the lights just seemed to go out of heaven as I staggered up the yard. Well, the doctor was a friend of mine who had children of his own, but he did not need to tell me. A blind man would have known. By that labored, quick-caught breathing, the little burning brow, it meant that the visitor was ready and was waiting for him right now. While we all sat beside his bedside in quiet, deep despair, the years just seemed to pour down on top of us as we faced each other there. Well, it was just a little before midnight when a ring came on the bell. It was the cowboy. Say, excuse me, sir, but I was sent to tell you that the Limited is ready and there's just no one else around. They want to know if you'll come and take her, because if you can't, then she just can't go out. Well, I left the answer to my wife. And she said, well, with lips as white as snow, yeah, go ahead. You might just well go ahead and do your duty. So I thought and then said, okay, well, I'll go. Well, I told the crew. And my fireman beside me in his rough and ready way said that his heart was feeling things that he just could not say. Well, the night was dark, moonless. The bright stars overhead seemed to be whispering to each other, his little boy is dead. The very locomotive seemed to read my thoughts all right, and the engine just seemed to throb in sympathy as we bulleted on through the night. We'd been running fast and steady. It was a little after 2. Passengers were all sleeping, maybe a few back in the smoke car still swapping stories, when all of a sudden a sight that filled my eyes, it filled my heart with terror and affright. For there, standing right before me, outlined against the halo of the light, stood a little child, outlined against the blackness of the night. No, I could not have been mistaken. I would have known him anywhere. His father's chin and forehead, his mother's eyes and hair. 2 little outstretched arms seemed to coax and say, Daddy, come and kiss me, because I have to go far away. Well, I flung the brakes and the throttle, and amid the hissing steam, the vision grew, vanished, as if in a dream. Well, we finally got stopped. My fireman beside me said, your nerves is just going, Jack. Let's just leave the engine here. Come on. Let's take a little walk along the track. The exercise will do you good. So I followed as he led, till we reached this steep gorge that lay about 100 yards ahead. Well, the night winds cooled my temples as we walked the bridge upon, and all of a sudden we both suddenly stopped and gasped. That whole center span of the bridge was gone. Now, you may call that a hallucination. I know some other folks do. But I know the master come and took my boy home at night at exactly 2:30. And I know that the prayers of all those passengers was just been offered up in vain, because had my son's spirit, dressed in his baby clothes, not stood before my train, whew, yes, I know I cried in my window seat, was probably otherwise ill-behaved. But I know that the timing of my son's death meant that all those other lives were saved. I was usually in trouble and never got bored the days I was driving my Model T Ford. It was simple to operate, easy to fix if you knew how it worked, and a couple of tricks. It had brakes, reverse, a low and high gear. You had to push hard on your foot, that was clear. The steering wheel, placed on my T for the Model A version, was larger, you see. But it was thicker too, with no room for the nut. If there was a problem, well, I didn't know what, but it was keyed so it wouldn't slip anyway, and the steering was easier, and I liked it that way. Well, my friend Johnny and I often worked as a team. When we finished our chores, well, we'd cook up some scheme. Well, we were hauling a barrel of water one day up a pretty steep hill for the tea, I would say. Now, the barrel was topless, so Johnny was riding in back to prevent that old barrel from sliding. The steep part was rocky, the going was rough, but we're under control, so it wasn't too tough. I push hard on the pedal to keep her in gear, and to brace, I pull up on the wheel as I steer. Well, the steering wheel came off and hit me smack dab in the nose, but that smacking was only the start of my woes. Well, now I had to grab something to keep pushing down. I can't stop on the slope, though I feel like a clown. So one hand on the throttle, one holding on, can't wipe my face, my dignity's gone. With all the blood and the tears, I can't see, I can't steer, I can't stop on the slope. Oh, my plight is severe. And now poor Johnny in back as we lurch up the hill is still holding the barrel so that it wouldn't spill. Well, after lurching and jerking our way to the top where the brakes finally held, we came to a stop. We were under control and were glad we had fought her, but now we had to go back down the hill for more water. Thank you, Lord, for all the years of health and happiness. I don't know why it is that my life you chose to bless. I know your 10 Commandments. Well, no, I don't live them to the letter. I know I'm sure far from perfect, Lord. I should be a whole bunch better. Thank you, Lord, for letting me live in the shadows of these mountains tall. For 2 eyes twice me see your pretty colors in the fall. For the Chinook winds that blow in here and lick the winter snow. For letting me ride in those high up places where only eagles normally go. Thank you, Lord, for the food I eat, for the water when I'm dry, for giving me freedom so I might spread my wings and fly. I've had my ups and downs, yes, I've suffered several broken bones, but I know they were only there to remind me that immortality is yours alone. Thank you, Lord, for all my friends, for the good horses that I've owned. When I think of all those many wayward nights when you saw me safely home, for the rains that you send and the sunshine that bring all those pretty flowers, the new grass in the spring. Thank you, Lord, for 3 fine kids, my life of over 60 years. When I think of all those miles and miles and miles of happiness and just a few short yards of tears. Yes, I don't know what it is and why it is that my life you chose to preserve. But I want to thank you, Lord, for giving us so much more than what we probably really deserve.
Susie Lee done fall in love. She planned to marry Joe. In fact, she felt so good about it, she told her pappy so. Oh, pappy says, you cannot marry Joe, my child. You'll have to find another. Now, I just assume your ma don't know, but you see, Joe is your half-brother. Huh. Anyway, Susie put aside her Joe. Then she met and planned to marry Will. But when she told her pappy, he said, oh, there's trouble still. You cannot marry Will, my child. But please, now, please, don't tell your mother. But you see, Will and Joe and several more I know is your half-brother. But Mama knew. And she said, child, you just do what makes you happy. Marry Will or marry Joe. You see, the fact is, you ain't no kin to pappy.